Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. My name is Jack Rod, your real estate podcast, and I'm not sure what I'm going to be today. Welcome back to the podcast. This is my fucking 900th time trying to record this. Today has just been a roller coaster of ADHD and anxiety, and I have sat down to record this fucking episode like I can't even tell you how many times now. Really just not loving this episode at all. I'm probably just going to redo this entire take, so. I've been sitting in this chair in front of this camera and this microphone for hours, and it is just not it's not happening today. So I did what any smart man would do, and I called my mom. I don't know that my mom knows this, and this will be a little bit of a surprise to her, but I recorded probably the last 15 minutes or so of our conversation. So I'll piece some of those things in here and there because I think she has some really good things to say, and I think that she would add a lot to the podcast as far as context and just in general, getting a different perspective of, where I started, where I'm at, and, kind of where I'm headed and everything like that. So
you have social anxiety. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means here's some of the steps you have to take.
Yeah.
And stuff. And so maybe maybe there's somebody out there that needs to hear that story.
And I said, hey, I'm struggling today. I've got no news to report on. I fear that the podcast is going to be just dog boring, and I don't know what to talk about. I've tried a million times to record it and to go over it and everything like that, and literally nothing is working. So, what do you think I should talk about? She told me that her favorite episode so far, and I take her opinion in very high regard. She told me her favorite episode so far was last week's episode, where I kind of talked in a more storytelling, conversational sense, and I didn't do as much news reporting because she said it lets your personality shine through. Of course, I was flattered and everything like that. It's kind words from my mom, who wouldn't be. But I was thinking about it, and we started talking a little bit. We were on the phone for about half an hour. She said, well, what if you talked about kind of your journey as a real estate agent? Because it sounds like you have at least a little bit of news to report that would relate to that.
I mean, that to me, that can be something that you can talk from the heart from. That is something that you have something to say about.
And so, I kind of wanted to make this, I guess, a motivational-esque. I'm not going to be a motivational speaker or anything like that, but it's going to be a more kind of how I started in real estate, how I got my start and everything like that, trying to motivate some newer agents or younger agents, because as many of you know, I am 23 years old. And some days I feel like I'm, fucking 60 years old because this career, I feel, has matured me much further than a lot of my peers. Not to brag or anything like that. I promise you, I am a very humble person. I definitely mentally feel as if I am middle-aged. I'm ready for a crisis, one would say.
It's not like I didn't have a career crisis.
So I just wanted to kind of go over my story, I guess, go over how I got started, sort of my peaks and valleys so far of my career, because there has been some really high peaks.
Hey, I started out, guns blazing, thinking I was a big baller, selling, these great big houses with my fear, or my sphere of influence.
And some really low valleys, and I would be lying to you all if I didn't say I was in a valley right now. As many of you know, this is a tough year to be in real estate.
If one person can listen to this that relates to it, then hey, my Friday's great.
It's a tough year in general for the economy, and so this year has just been a shit show, to put it lightly. So we are just going to get straight into that. I just want to say that this is not going to be a news podcast. This is going to be a fun little motivational, storytelling, conversational, whatever you want to call it. I have no idea how long it's going to be. It might be a long-ass episode. You might be strapping in for the long haul here, or it could be 15 minutes or 10 minutes. I have literally no idea. There's no plan for this, and thanks to my ADHD, this could be a show or this could be fantastic, so stick around for that. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So I started my real estate journey, I like to say, right out of high school when I was 18. I planned to go to college like most high school seniors do. I planned to go to college to study business marketing. Actually, that's a lie. I wanted to study environmental science first. And I took 1 semester of environmental science classes, and I said, holy shit, I would never make it in this field, literally and figuratively. You know, I'm not going to go out and count frogs and record frog populations. Major props to the people that do it, but there's no way in hell that I would feel satisfied or fulfilled in life. And also, not to shit on that career, but, you know, it's not very high paying. And unfortunately, you kind of have to look for that in this current economy. So I'm not going to tell you that real estate is high paying either. It can be if you're a fantastic real estate agent, but it can also cost you money, a lot of money, in fact, to be a real estate agent. And a lot of that factors into kind of my start. So, you know, I go off to college, I'm studying environmental science. I said, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. So I switched to business marketing. I felt like that was going to be a very generic kind of major to follow and everything like that. But the entire time that I was in college, you know, just constantly doing research on, you know, how are the richest people in the world so rich? You know, what makes a wealthy person wealthy? And, you know, everything related to that. And not even in a vain sense, you know, I just wanted to find something that was lucrative, something that seemed interesting. And the common theme of all of that was real estate. And so I actually thought about going into the mortgage lending side of things first. But because I have absolutely zero patience and I didn't want to be a paper pusher for a few years before I turned into a loan officer, I decided to go the real estate agent route, which I'm so happy that I did. You know, first I shadowed and did an intern program at Evergreen Home Loans in Sacramento, where I grew up. And it was fun enough. You know, it was an interesting job, I guess you could say. It's very much sitting behind the desk, doing paperwork. You're on the phone, you're answering emails, you know, nothing super, super exciting. And then I did an internship program with a family friend of ours that was a real estate agent. I think was really the catalyst of everything. From that moment forwards, from that first day that I kind of shadowed this agent, I said, I want to do this. I enjoyed literally every single part of it. And I said, if every day of real estate is like this, I'll be the happiest man on earth. It turns out that not every day was like that day. It just happened to be an exceptionally good day, but I wouldn't change a thing because I do actually love my job and I love what I do. You know, let's rewind a little bit. So I'm in college studying business marketing, and I wrote a letter to my parents. I was super nervous to do this, but I was pretty dead set in my ways. And it basically said, I'm going to get my real estate license. I'm going to try it for 1 year. If it doesn't go well, I'll go back to school. But for that time being, I'm going to take a year off of school. For a half a second, I said, no, that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. That's so stupid. Why would I not get a degree? And then I said, no. This is something that I want to do. This is something that I have put a lot of time and effort into already. It's been a couple years in the making. I've done internships. I've shadowed. Everything is pretty much exactly, you know, what I want to aspire to be and what I want to pursue in this world. I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't try this. And so I wrote that letter, printed it out, mailed it back to my parents because I was going to school in Portland, Oregon, and they were still living in Sacramento. I mailed it to my parents, and it immediately, as soon as it got there, I was met with two very different sides of the story. My father, for reference, has a master's degree. My mother, she never went to college, but she does very well in her career as a meeting planner, event coordinator, marketer. She is just a superwoman, so to speak, and she does very well for herself. So two very different backgrounds is the point I'm trying to make here. So I was met with two very different opinions on the matter. And thinking back on it now, I have no idea why I wrote, a fucking letter and send it in the mail. That's so dramatic. But I think it does add to the story, and I have that letter somewhere. Basically, my father said, absolutely not. You're going to finish your degree. You're going to finish your bachelor's degree. You're going to get a degree in business marketing like you're planning, and this is what you're going to do. And my mother said, that's great. Follow your hopes and dreams. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You can always go back to school. You know, my first introduction into real estate, my first kind of, I guess you could call it a transaction in a sense. It was an emotional transaction, but it was a transaction, was mediation. And I said, oh, this is kind of fun. So I said, well, shit. Why would I not try this? You know, it's just a year. If it goes south, I'll graduate school when I'm 23 instead of 22. That's not the end of the world. That's still super young. So I finished out my year at school. I finished the semester and I immediately enrolled in real estate school, got my license. At this exact same time, we were moving my whole family was moving to Dallas. And so it was kind of a weird transitional period in my life, but I said, you know what? New start on all fronts. Why not just go, whole hog? Let's just get it done. And so I get my license, and our real estate agent here in Dallas was actually a family friend. And I reached out to her and I said, I don't really know what I'm doing in this career. It's something I'm super interested in. I'll be licensed in October. Can I work with you until then? And then we can talk about joining your team officially after I get licensed. Kudos to her. She took me straight under her wing, and she's been in the industry for 50 years, and so she's kind of a pro in all regards. And a lot of people in Dallas know her. A lot of agents and brokerages know her in Dallas. She's kind of a powerhouse and just a good person overall. And so I was super excited to be part of her team. I started working with her. Everything was just new and shiny and exciting. I got my license. I passed my test first try. Humble brag there, because it's only about a 50% pass rate. Passed my test, got my license and everything, got all my fingerprints done, and started working on this team officially as a buyer's agent. Very quickly, I kind of learned my business style did not necessarily collaborate with this team leader's business style. And that's not a rag on her. That is not, anything personal. It's just a professional opinion of mine, is that we just have very different styles, different ways of doing things. The one thing that I've learned in this career is that you have to fend for yourself. You have to fight for yourself, and you got to do what's going to benefit you the most, because if you don't, you're just going to get rained on, essentially. And so after a few months of that, I just felt maybe I'm not set, maybe I'm not designed for a team, essentially. I don't think that my business style or structure is necessarily most effective in a team setting. I went from being on a team and more or less babied, my way through the start of my career to full independence. I moved to a brokerage that was completely online, and I was by myself. I had a mentor that I had found through the agent that I actually shadowed under. We started working together. He acted as my mentor, and I was just kind of cast into the ocean, just holding on for dear life, just barely treading water. And it was kind of a shocking difference almost, going from team style where we've got meetings, a couple times a week where we all sit together and we collaborate, and there's a million different things to go over, and everybody's got their own little responsibility that they stick to being by yourself. All of that falls right onto you. There's nobody else that's going to hold your hand and walk you through this. There's nobody holding you to any sort of expectations. Literally everything is on you. And that is where I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose in regards to information. And so I worked with this mentor. We came up with some business plans. We eventually started working with a coach together. He was a great coach for us both. And had a lot of really great things to offer. I was with that brokerage for about a year, and I loved every second of it, honestly, but it got to a point where I felt like I was alienating myself because it was an online brokerage, because it was virtual, because I was by myself, working from home. It was COVID. Nobody's going out. I was by myself. I was home, late at night, super lonely. I didn't have any friends because I just moved to a new state. I worked in a career that was, essentially running your own business, working from home for myself, by myself, and it was just super lonely. And I said, I need some sort of camaraderie, essentially. So that's when I made the decision to move to Remax. And that's been a fantastic decision since. My start of my career was rather unconventional. I moved here to Texas, with my family. My parents got divorced 6 months after we moved here. Super not ideal for getting situated into a new state. Let me tell you that right now. Love them to death, but holy shit, that was not very productive in a sense of finding myself or being able to kind of have home to come back to. This is not a pity party. This is just my kind of view on things. And so I came to Texas with a sphere of influence of about 5 people, my parents, my sister, and my grandparents. I sold a house to every single one of them except my sister. She's in college, so she's not buying a house yet. But I sold a house to every single one of them, sold their houses, and a lot of them I did transactions with twice. That was a rather unconventional start, I guess, to real estate, because immediately I'm getting licensed, I'm independent, and my first year I do $2.5 million in volume. For those of you that don't know, average commission is about 3%, about $65,000 income as a college dropout, my first year in real estate. I said, holy shit, I am living good. I was, still living at home at that point too. I was living in an apartment with my mom. I wasn't necessarily paying rent or anything like that. So I thought I was, on top of the world. I was king of the world. I'm sitting here raking in the money. And I saved my pennies and everything, and I went and found my own apartment and very quickly learned, oh shit, it's kind of hard to live by yourself. You got bills to pay. I got to take care of a lot of things. I got to take care of my dog. A million different things to think about. And then, I did really well my second year in real estate as well. I did just over $2.5 million in volume. And so again, I've got this rather unconventional start, but it totally shifted my perspective on how to be a good agent, because I thought, business just falls into my lap. That's just how it's going to be. It's the easiest job in the world. I just have to sit back as long as I've got a sign in front of somebody's yard or in front of somebody's house in somebody's yard. People are going to call me. I'm going to have business all day long. That right there is probably the least sustainable business model that you could ever think. And I'm not 100% sure why I came to that conclusion, probably just through false kind of reinforcement and everything like that. But I came to that conclusion, and I was a really great real estate agent, but a terrible, terrible marketer, self-promoter, and essentially, not a great business runner. I was great at doing my job, not great at the back end stuff that requires the day-to-day grind, that requires reaching out to cold leads, that requires, a million other different things that us agents have to do in order to stay afloat. And very quickly, that well ran dry.
And stuff. And then the reality of it, and hitting the reality of it hitting me as to what this is, and stuff, and the foundational groundwork that it takes to make it successful, and everything is a thing as well, and everybody kind of needs to level set.
This was kind of in that transitional period where I was moving from the online brokerage to Remax and everything, so there was a lot of new changes happening all at the same time. I said, oh my god, okay, I'm not in a great spot. I'm kind of up at creek right now as I'm sitting here with no prospects in line, no leads to call, no nothing. And I said, I've got about 4 months of expenses saved. Because, when you're living high and you're not thinking super forward, I mean, to my credit, I think I'm a smart individual, but I think that we all get clouded by judgment sometimes. And when you are 20 years old and you've got 60 grand in your bank account, there's not a whole lot of financial planning that tends to go on. So I was spending money. I was going on trips every other month, in and out of state all the time. I was dating this girl from another state, flying up there, flying her here, all sorts of shit. Spending money left and right because I said it's coming in, may as well spend it. Which is, if you're a new agent, do not do that. That is the worst thing that you could do, honestly. Plan financially, have a year of expenses saved up, because when shit does go south, and it will at some point, you're gonna thank yourself for saving that money. So you heard it here first, folks, straight from the horse's mouth. But anyways, I was with Remax and I did fairly well. That was just over $2.5 million income. Or not income, sorry, I fucking wish. In volume, I had what I consider my best month ever, where I sold about half of that in a 30-day period. I did about $1.2 million in volume in the month of September of last year, of 2022. And something that I've never experienced that I am looking forward to experiencing again is getting a wire transfer from a title company in the amount of $28,000. Think about that. That is some people's salary. Granted, they're probably not in the best financial situation, but for a 22-year-old to be sitting at a closing table and I get a notification from Chase Bank that my wire transfer just cleared and I now had $28,000 deposit waiting in my account was mind-boggling. And I went straight back to that mindset of abundance of, oh, business just comes to me. I don't, this was a lot of work, but I'm good now. I can take a few months off. I'll chill. I'll be good. I've got 30 grand. That is completely my fault. I will not deny that at all. That is completely my fault. But what it did really is, while those few months were fun, not having to worry about bills or expenses and kind of just doing whatever I wanted, but not looking towards the future, not doing the prospecting, not putting in the grimy, grindy work, really screwed me, honestly. And I'll admit it, it's my own fault. I've got no problem saying that because it's all a learning experience. I mean, I'm not trying to blame naiveness or my age on any of this. I think that like I said, I think I'm a smart individual. I think that, you just get caught up in some of these things sometimes. Earlier this year, I had this transaction that figuratively almost killed me out of stress, honestly. Essentially what had happened is I represented this client who was a fraudster by trade, essentially. They had stolen identities, they had stolen mailing addresses, all this shit, posed themselves as a seller of this property. I consulted with them, got everything written up, thought, I had a listing just fall into my lap. It was too good to be true, and I should have recognized that, but, clouded by judgment once again, I guess you could say. But I did everything right. That's what I kept reassuring myself of. I did everything right. I did all my background checks. I did all my title checks. I did all my identity, everything. I did everything that I possibly could. And it wasn't until closing day that everybody started to get a little bit suspicious. The title company said, we can't really get a hold of this person. They're being real weird about the notary and everything. And they had their lawyers look into it. And that's when all of this shit was uncovered. That process is what screwed me. And this, again, is not a pity party, but that screwed me in a big way, because at this time I had 6 or 8 clients that I was involved with and following up with, showing houses to, setting up searches for, getting them, ready for listing, everything. All of a sudden, my daily responsibilities shifted from following up with those clients and managing those clients to, okay, how do I not get sued? Because the result of that fraudulent client was that the buyers of that property turned around, pinned it on me, and they were going to sue me. And so meanwhile, I've got my broker's lawyers, I've got title lawyers, I've got personal lawyers lined up, talking to them all day long, trying to figure this out. We had the DA involved. We had Dallas Police Financial Crimes Unit involved, just so many things going on. Very quickly, my days turned from, client servicing to, okay, how do I save myself, in this moment? And that kind of really put a pause on the momentum for my start of this year. Looping this back into the whole story of where I got to today as I'm talking to you on July 14th, I thought, okay, maybe I'm not cut out to be an individual agent and I need to just find a new team. Maybe I just happened to land in the wrong team at first, and maybe a new team would actually be really good for me. So I joined a team with a really powerful agent in my brokerage at Remax, and nicest guy on the planet. And we started working together, and it was about 4 weeks in, and I said to myself, this is really just not going well again. It's just, I think I'm too much of a control freak. I really like to have full control of my business and everything like that. And I just, started to get real demotivated. I was kind of in a pit. And if you look at the statistics of it, the average retention rate for real estate agents after 2 years is about 15%. After 5 years, it's about 9%. So not great, right? We got an 85% and a 91% drop-off rate. And I kind of looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I'm not going to be one of those statistics, but I understand why these people drop, because this is not easy.
It's tough, but it's rewarding.
So I'm sitting there, I'm kind of grappling with the idea of like, oh God, I just promised this guy the world, and I was going to be a good team member, and I'm not really doing him a service, and I'm doing myself a disservice by being on this team and not allowing myself to really kind of take the hard reset and a huge step back that I need to take, that I think has been a long time coming. So I talked to my manager, who is just a godsend, and I said, dude, here's the situation. Here's where I'm at. I just don't think any of this is working. I don't know what to do. I'm so close to throwing in the towel. Please help. Basically just came to him begging on my knees, like, I need help. What can we do together? Because I'm willing to put the work in. I just don't even know where to start. And he said, first of all, I think you're independent 100%. You've been successful as an independent in the past. And he kind of reminded me of the peaks of my career. And he said, nobody else did those. Those were you're doing, and you need to remind yourself that you are a good agent. You are good at your job. You're great at, relationships and everything like that. You're just in a slump right now, and that's okay. And so my manager really took me under my wing, and he's become my mentor over the last month or so, where we're meeting together every week. We're sitting down, we're collaborating, we're going through a whole training module. And a lot of it's redundant. I know a lot of this information already, but part of this training module is the fact that it's going to teach me the reaching out part, the prospecting part, the dirty, grimy, nasty shit that I hate doing. It's teaching me a lot of that. I'm super thankful for it. And this podcast is one of those things, honestly.
I'm riding out this career crisis, and here's how I'm doing it. And this podcast is part of it. This is, me getting out here, me getting out of my comfort zone, putting myself out there and everything, and trying to share nuggets. And just to, have people to listen. And
I don't think this, for the record, I don't think this podcast is dirty, grimy, nasty shit, but this is part of my marketing. Doing this podcast every week, it's a challenge to myself as it is a promise to you guys. Because I told you, I've said this a million times, I'll say it again. I told y'all I was going to do this every week, and I am fulfilling that promise. But I'm also proving to myself that through, small actions, I can build good, big habits that are productive and effective. And so today, I think I mentioned this right at the start of the podcast. Today has just been kind of a doozy of a day, honestly. I sat down to record. Nothing came to mind. I had no news to cover. I had nothing going on. I just said, oh my God, I can't do this. I literally can't do this. And I almost gave up. And then I sat down. I talked to my mom, like I said. I said, I would rather get this out a day late than not at all. So this episode is coming out on a Saturday, which is not the usual schedule, but that's okay. In the grand scheme of it all, honestly, the main point, I guess, of all of this is that if you are a new agent, your journey is not going to be a smooth one. It's a tough industry to break into, especially right now. The market is just all over the place. We were not set up for success for the last few years. It's a struggle to run a business. That's essentially what I'm doing every day. And marketing is a huge part of that. So I've started the YouTube channel. I've gotten my social media boosted way up, and I'm doing this podcast and everything like that. And it's all been helping. I've had a few leads come in, and it's insane to see the effectiveness of these kind of habits that I'm building up and everything. Going back to kind of retention rates and everything like that, for the last few years, it's been really easy to make good money in this industry because of the market and because of how easy it was to sell a house. And everybody's making hand over fist doing this thing, selling their house. Prices are way up, inventory's down, demand is skyrocketed. All these kind of things, like this perfect storm built up. People are just making money left and right. Home prices are way up and demand is skyrocketed. All these things, and it was really easy to make money in this industry, but now we're seeing a huge drop off as the market gets tougher. These retention rates are starting to come into play a little bit. We're at that 2-year mark where a lot of people got to renew their license and everything. And just this year alone, in the last 7 months, we've seen 60,000 agents not renew their license. And it's predicted that about 200,000 will not renew by the end of the year. Because like I said earlier, this industry, if you're not making money, you are paying to be an agent. And it's expensive. You've got a lot of board dues, you've got membership dues, you've got brokerage fees, you've got marketing fees, you've got this, that, the other. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. And it costs a lot of money to be an agent. So for a lot of these people that are not renewing, it's because they don't want to pay $500-$600 for board dues or whatever it may be, or they don't want to pay $200 a month to their brokerage because they're not making any money because it's a tough market right now. And all of this to say, I feel like the story is kind of falling apart a little bit. I'm kind of losing the point here towards the end. Just because it's hard now doesn't mean it's going to be hard forever. You just have to learn the, kind of the building blocks and everything like that. I just wanted to come on here, and because I didn't have any news to report on, because I didn't have anything exciting to tell you guys, I just wanted to kind of go over my story of how I got started and where I'm at, and how I got there and kind of the peaks and valleys of my career, because I feel like the more that I can be real with you guys, the more that I can show you kind of the true essence of myself, the more trust that's going to build with you. And if anybody takes anything from this podcast, I would say that hard work does pay off. Being an agent is not an easy job, but it is a good job. It's a great job. It's very fulfilling. I'm helping people reach their goals all the time, which is honestly all I could ever ask for. I think the importance of finding a mentor and finding what works best for you. Not everybody's going to do great in a team. Not everybody's going to do great as an individual agent. You just have to find what works for you. It might take a couple years to really find that and see what works for you, but I wouldn't say that, hopping around and changing up your situation every couple months is a good idea. Definitely try and stick it out and write it out. And if it's not working, don't be afraid of change, because change is not always a bad thing, but just be confident in what you're doing, even if you have no idea what that is. Anyways, guys, I just really wanted to kind of bring you along my journey. I think this podcast is going to shift into a more conversational style. It's a lot more comfortable for me, rather than kind of reading off of my monitor and reading the facts and everything like that. and being more of a news reporter. That's not super enjoyable to me, and that's why I really struggled today, is because I didn't really have anything to report on. But I'm also just there's a lot of statistical buckets to fall into in life and in this industry and in this career.
Like, here's a couple of statistics that I follow, these buckets of statistics I fall into.
Yeah.
Here's how I'm going to avoid falling into this one. And guess what? With real estate agents, it's, here's what's happening.
And, being an agent in the negative part of that retention rate, being that 85% that drops off. My goal is to not end up in that bucket, and I'm doing, the work now to not be there. But as far as life goes, I mean, people of all walks of life are real estate agents. And I can say for at least myself, I've got social anxiety out the ass, and I have pretty bad adult ADHD as well, which has just been a struggle and a half to really, get through. And so there's a lot of different ways to kind of go about this business. And I think that, just finding how you can use those things to your advantage is going to be really important. I don't even know. I think that having social anxiety honestly helps me because I kind of overthink a lot of my relationships with my clients and whatnot. And so I'm putting a lot of thought and a lot of time into these relationships. And I'm not just doing this because I want to make a quick buck, but because I'm trying to form these friendships and these relationships where I can be, of assistance and beneficial to these clients for many, many, many years to come. And I think that my ADHD really plays into being a good agent because I've got such an attention to detail and I can hyper focus on, kind of the numbers of it all. My mom was saying, thinks that I'm a great agent, blah, blah, blah. And not to brag again, but she said, you're a great agent because you can really focus on the numbers and a house front ways, back ways, sideways, upside down before you ever even step into it. And that really helps kind of build that foundation of trust that I talked about earlier. I think that's going to be it, guys. This is a long ass episode. I just looked at my timer and I've been recording for like fucking ever. I need to actually leave right now. For those of you that don't know, if you are a real estate agent, don't be ashamed to get a second job, pay your bills, be responsible. I am a bartender at nights at a restaurant called Origin Kitchen and Bar in Uptown Dallas.
I'm bartending. I'm doing stuff. I'm hustling on the side because this means enough to me that I'm going to ride this out and I'm going to figure it out and stuff. And I think that's a good story to tell.
I do that a few nights a week and it helps pay the bills and everything. So I actually have to go bartend. I'm going to get ready for that really quick and then walk out this door. This episode will be out tomorrow. It'll be a Saturday, and that is totally fine because in life, not everything's going to go as planned, and it's better to be a day late than not deliver at all. Thank you all for listening to this. I rambled a ton, but this is my true personality. When I get talking, I'm talking. So I hope you all enjoyed. Sorry if this was just super long, but it is what it is. And, I really hope you guys are having a great weekend so far. And I hope you have a great week coming up.